I walked in and saw my husband and my mom together. I still can't breathe. If a heart could make a sound when it cracks, mine would have woken the whole block. But hearts don't break loudly. They fold in on themselves and whisper, "Don't look." I looked anyway. I'm Mira, wife, mother, loyal oldest daughter, professional maker of lists, and packer of lunchboxes. My husband is Evan, weekday responsible, weekend goofy, the dad who learns magic tricks off YouTube to wow our kids at the dinner table. And my mother was my best friend. Her name is Lila. She is a hurricane dressed like a helping hand, a person who can bake a pie and cut you with the compliment that follows. I spent most of my life learning to read her forecast: warm morning, icy afternoon, thunder at bedtime, sunshine the next day. You adapt to weather when it's your mother. After my kids were born, I decided she'd softened. I decided a lot of things that made loving her easier. We were trying for another baby. That's the part that still makes my throat tight. I was tracking days on a discrete app and keeping a cheap test under the sink. Hope lived in the house with the smoke alarms and the string lights and the crayon murals under the dining table. We were a mess. We were happy. We were us. 2 nights before Christmas, we hosted a little holiday party. Siblings, a couple of neighbors, my mother, a herd of children in socks sliding down the hallway. The good plates came out. Someone brought a cheese ball shaped like a snowman. I set timers, wiped spills, tucked the baby monitor in my apron pocket. Lila floated between rooms, warm with attention, red lipstick perfect, the exact brand of helpful that earns applause, topping off glasses, folding dish towels just so, patting my cheek with fingers that always felt a little like a test. She called Evan my favorite son-in-law 3 times. The laugh that followed had edges. We put the kids down one by one, that beautiful avalanche of bedtime books, water sips, blanket rescues, a last bathroom run for absolutely no reason. By midnight, guests trickled out into the cold, hugging everyone twice, promising texts tomorrow. Lila swore she'd Uber home and then, as always, announced she'd better not because the roads were slick and besides, the guest room is already made up. Isn't it, sweetheart? She kissed my temple and squeezed past me, a blur of perfume and decision already made. Evan started rinsing glasses. I stacked plates. We were the kind of quietly tired that comes after a clean party with no disasters. It should have ended there. It would have, in the version of our life I'd been writing. At 2:30, the house felt wrong. Not loud wrong. The kind of wrong that makes your skin listen. Evan hadn't come to bed. He does that sometimes, falls asleep to game highlights, remote in hand, mouth open, the picture of domestic peace. I threw on a cardigan and padded through the dark. Living room, empty, TV off, blanket folded. Kitchen, counters wiped, sink shining, 2 wine glasses upside down on a towel. I felt a flicker of affection for him. He always does the glasses. He knows spots on glass make me nuts. Then I saw it. The faint gray ribbon of light under the guest room door. My stomach dropped the way elevators do when you aren't ready. I didn't think anything. I didn't suspect. I'm not a detective. I'm a mom who can find a lost shoe in 30 seconds. I'm a wife who knows where the band-aids are. I'm a daughter who learned early that some doors have weather behind them. I turned the knob and opened the door. People ask for details like the right angle could make it make sense. I won't give you what you think you want. This isn't that kind of story. But I will tell you what I saw in a way that keeps it YouTube safe and still true. The guest bed was a mess, the kind of disorder that doesn't come from napping. The air had a heat to it, a mix of wine and winter and something I can't label without throwing up in my mouth. Evan's shirt was half untucked. His hair, the hair I've smoothed 1,000 times, looked like a question. Lila's silk robe was tied but crooked, the edges not where edges belong. Her hand, my mother's hand, was at the back of his neck, fingers splayed in a way I know too well, the way that pulls someone closer, not pushes them away. Faces too near. Breath too near. A kind of gravity between them that had no excuse left. For one split second before they noticed me, I saw her expression. Not horror. Not accident. That old, horrible flash I've seen since childhood when she gets what she wants. Triumph. Then they both jolted. The spell broke. Evan staggered like he'd been thrown from a moving car. Lila's face rearranged itself into maternal concern so quickly I could hear the gears. Mira, sweetheart, this isn't, she began, as if there is a version of what I saw that doesn't mean what it means. I shut the door. Not gently. The frame rattled. The hallway tilted. The carpet felt like water. I grabbed the wall and then my own body, like I could hold myself in. I made it to our bedroom on legs that didn't belong to me and sat on the floor because the bed was too high, too soft, too married. People talk about crying like rain. Mine was heat. No sound. Just a burn under my skin that wouldn't let me breathe right. I pressed the heel of my hand to my mouth because the kids were sleeping, and there are kinds of grief you are not allowed to confuse with nightmares for a 6-year-old in dinosaur pajamas. At some point, it was morning. The color in the room changed. A tiny person launched onto my stomach and shouted, "It's Christmas Eve," as if the calendar doesn't care about my life. It doesn't. Calendars are ruthless. I flipped the switch in my chest from dying to mom, not because I am superhuman, but because that is the job. We made pancakes. I added cinnamon because I always do. I flipped them like I wasn't imagining the guest room bed or the way my mother's robe didn't line up with itself. I laughed at knock-knock jokes that didn't land because my kids laugh when I laugh. Evan never came into the kitchen. He stayed out of sight like a man hiding from himself. I plated pancakes anyway and put a plate in the microwave with a paper towel on top because after all this, my muscles still know how to be kind. It's disgusting. It's human. My phone buzzed. Group text from my siblings. Tomorrow at our place? 10 a.m. brunch? Lila chimed in with a flurry of hearts and a can't wait for matching PJs, like she hadn't lit our house on fire in the quiet hours. My throat filled up with something heavy and stupid. Hope? No. Memory. The version of her I wanted to keep living. That afternoon, because we're trying, because I had marked a date on an app, because hope is rude and doesn't ask permission, I took a pregnancy test. I stood barefoot on a tile floor and stared at a plastic stick and tried not to wish for anything. You can't hold two futures at the same time without tearing something. The line didn't appear. Negative. Relief hit first and made me hate myself. Then grief arrived for the baby who didn't exist and the marriage that did but suddenly didn't look like itself. People online would tell me to leave. Some would say to set fire to everything and walk away in slow motion. Others would say forgive, because it's Christmas, because family, because drunk accidents happen. I didn't want the internet in my kitchen. I didn't want whispers in my siblings' ears before I could decide what my voice sounds like. I didn't want to hear the word divorce from a person who doesn't pack my kids' lunches. So I did 3 things. 1. I kept the house calm for the kids. No scenes. No whisper fights that leap under doors. No cold shoulders that children can read even with their eyes closed. I put on a movie. I cut apples. I let them help wrap a gift, which is to say I watched them tape a ribbon to the table and said, "Perfect." 2. I moved Evan out of our room. I didn't write a speech. I didn't perform rage. I pointed to the linen closet, then to the couch. He nodded like a man reading a sentence that ends in a period. 3. I removed my mother. I texted 5 words, "You need to leave. Now. Permanently." No essay. No bargaining. She called. I didn't answer. She texted 3 paragraphs about misunderstandings and we were both drunk and you know how sensitive you can be, and then a single line that told me everything I needed to know. Don't throw away your mother over one mistake. I put the phone face down and let it buzz itself empty. Christmas morning arrived like a parade crashing into a war zone. My siblings came over with bagels and a giant foil pan of eggs. We wore paper crowns from a box and pretended they didn't itch. The kids tore wrapping paper and screamed the kind of scream that is pure glee, no filter. My mother did not come. I told my siblings she had the flu. I lied to keep the day whole. I will tell the truth when I can do it without turning my niece's memories of Christmas into sirens. Evan hovered near the kids like proximity could somehow redeem him. He was careful with me the way you're careful with a glass thing on a moving table. He did dishes. He didn't touch me. He avoided doorways. He avoided mirrors. When our youngest leaned back against his chest to show him a toy, he blinked hard and kissed the top of her head like he was saying sorry into her hair. That night, After the dishwasher's slow hush and the kids' sturdy sleep, he asked if we could talk. His voice had a rasp in it I didn't recognize. "I'm not going to make excuses," he started, hands open like he needed the air to see them empty. "I was drunk. That makes judgment bad, not okay." He swallowed. "She knows how to push. That makes her wrong, not me right. I am sick over what I did. I am terrified of what I've done to our family. I will do anything you ask to try to fix what can be fixed." It is a very strange thing to sit across from the person who hurt you, the person you love, the father of your children, and feel two truths at war. I want you gone and I want this family whole. I did not yell. I had done my screaming on the inside where nobody could hear it and the floor met my knees. I spoke like I was etching instructions into the table. "Here's what happens next," I said, steady somehow, like strength had borrowed my mouth. "We get professionals. Not a priest. Not a friend. Not a relative. A therapist who treats betrayal trauma. You move to the guest room and you stay there until I pointed to my chest, says otherwise. You cut my mother out completely, text, email, blocked. You tell your family a version of the truth you can live with, which is, you did something unforgivable and you are trying to repair what you broke. I tell my family when I'm ready. You don't drink a drop until a counselor, not you, says it's safe. You do not minimize. You do not hurry me. One misstep, and we're done." He nodded after each sentence like a defendant accepting charges. "Yes," he said. "Yes." He was shaking in a way that made me want to hand him a blanket and a bus ticket at the same time. "This isn't only about what you do," I added. "It's about what I need. I need sleep. I need to eat. I need space. And every time my brain tries to tell me I could have stopped this by being more fun or less tired or more anything, I need you to say no. You didn't cause this." "I will," he said, like a vow he could keep. We booked therapy the first day offices reopened. He got an individual slot at 9. I got one at 10. The therapist penciled us in together at noon, 3 chairs angled at each other like a triangle you could hide in. The first session burned. The second scraped. The third gave me a sentence that stuck. "You do not heal by pretending it didn't happen, you heal by making sure it doesn't happen again, and by learning how to live with the part of your story that isn't your fault." Meanwhile, I grieved my mother like she died and was somehow still alive to send me emails. She tried every door, apologies that blamed wine, apologies that blamed me, apologies that weren't apologies at all. She left a gift bag on the porch with peppermint lotion and a note that read, "Family forgives, sweetheart." I threw it away. Then I cried because it is awful to throw away a note from your mother even when you have to. I didn't tell my siblings the story. Not yet. I gave them the outline. "Mom and I aren't speaking right now. I need space. Please don't mediate." If they pressed, I repeated the line, "It's private and I'm okay." If they judged, I let them. Being misunderstood is a tax you sometimes pay for protecting yourself. Nights were the worst. My body laid down, my brain stood up and replayed the door. Replay. Pause. Zoom. I took a small sleep aid, doctor approved, not because I love medicine but because racing thoughts don't parent well. I built a ritual so my body would learn: hot shower, peppermint tea, phone charging in the kitchen, 3 pages in a cheap notebook where I wrote nothing poetic, just what happened today and what didn't happen. I wrote, I got through breakfast without thinking of the guest bed. I wrote, I laughed once and it was real. I wrote, I didn't text her back. Evan kept showing up in ways that didn't ask for applause. He did morning duty with the kids so I could sleep until my alarm, not my shame. He answered every question I asked even if I asked it twice or badly. When I told him a detail I couldn't stop seeing, the angle of his shirt, the tilt of her mouth, he didn't argue with the memory. He said, I know. I hate it too, and I hated him less for not trying to make the picture prettier. And, because you asked for careful, non-graphic intimacy details, the kind that explain why I broke without breaking any guidelines, I'll say this. It wasn't just bodies. It was familiarity. It was the way her fingers knew where to press on the back of his neck, the way his shoulders dropped like muscle memory. It was the quiet sound people make when they aren't strangers. It was the way the bed announced we were here with its shape and the way the sheet clung to the edge like it had been pulled in a hurry. None of that is explicit. All of it is indecent. It told me everything I needed to know without a single forbidden word. The week after New Year's, I cleaned the guest room. I did it alone. Evan offered to help. I said no. Some things you have to reclaim with your own hands. I stripped the bed like I was peeling off a bad dream. I washed the sheets hot enough to make the laundry room steam. I opened the window and let winter bite the air. I replaced the pillowcases with new ones I bought on purpose, a silly floral print Lila would have hated. I stood in the doorway and said out loud, "This is my house." It sounded small. It felt enormous. Hope didn't return. It crept. I caught it in stupid places. The sound of our son giggling at a joke Evan told for the 7th time. The way our daughter's hand found mine in the parking lot without looking. The afternoon sunlight striping the hallway like a promise I didn't want to admit I believed. Hope is rude, yes, but also persistent. It doesn't ask if it's welcome. It just sits down and waits for you to notice. If you want a tidy moral at the end of part 1, I don't have one. I have rules taped to the inside of my skull. Loving someone doesn't require abandoning yourself. An accident can still be a choice. Alcohol explains. It does not excuse. Boundaries are doors you lock from the inside. You don't need to apologize for having hinges. Children deserve calm. Adults can fall apart after bedtime. Tomorrow, we keep the therapy appointments. Tomorrow, I make lunches. Tomorrow, I do not respond to my mother's newest email with the subject line, family meeting. Tomorrow, I tell my reflection again that I didn't cause this. And tonight, before I swallow the tiny pill that lets my brain stop for a few hours, I'm going to stand in the guest room doorway with the window cracked and the clean sheets on, and I'm going to breathe air that belongs to me, the morning after therapy. I took the wreath off the door and finally noticed how the berries had faded. It felt symbolic in a way that would have made me roll my eyes a month ago. Now I take my symbols where I can get them. We started with scaffolding, ugly, visible, necessary. Full disclosure, on paper. Our therapist, Dr. Hale, said, secrets rot the floorboards. She asked Evan to write a chronological narrative, where, when, substance is involved, what he told himself, what he told others, where opportunity turned into choice. No adjectives. No sales pitch. Just facts. You cannot heal from a mess you're guessing about, she told us, looking at him, not me. He spent 4 nights at the kitchen table, pen shaking like a fever, stopping when the kids patted in to ask for water, starting again when the house went still. When he handed me the pages, he didn't defend them with his face. He sat. He folded his hands. He watched me read. I learned nothing I hadn't already seen with my own eyes in the guest room, only the off-ramp he took to get there. Too much wine. Too much proximity. Too little humility. Lila's soft voice. His soft spine. He wrote that he felt flattered, powerful, desired. He wrote that he didn't stop because stopping would have meant naming what was happening. I did not trip, he wrote. I jumped. I pressed my fingers into my eyes and let the sentence hammer through me until it sounded like what it is, the truth. Zero contact, real, enforced, boring. He blocked Lila on everything. Email filters. Number blocked. Social media shut tight. We installed a package locker at the UPS store so nothing could reach our porch with my name on it in her handwriting. We told our neighbors, if you see my mother on our street, call me. We told the school office, no pickups except us. I changed the locks. I changed the garage code. I changed the cadence of my steps in the hallway outside the guest room until my body believed that room no longer belonged to a memory. Sobriety, not as an excuse, as a rule. Evan found a men's group that meets at 7 a.m. in a church basement with coffee that could strip paint. He went every day for the first 2 weeks, then 4 times a week. He got a sponsor who wears a ring he fiddles with when he talks about hard things. The ring is a reminder that people can break and still learn. Evan started collecting little plastic chips for days and weeks without drinking. He left them in a bowl by the door like pebbles from a path he wants to remember. Radical transparency, life on the table. Locations on. Calendars shared. No disappearing devices. No late-night scrolling in the bathroom to relax. If you want privacy, you earn it back by making safety feel bigger than secrecy. You're not on parole, Dr. Hale said when she saw my face. You're in a rebuilding zone. The cones and the caution tape aren't punishment, they're protection while the cement sets. Language, no bleaching, no dramatics. We picked words we could both live with. Affair isn't right. Assault isn't accurate. Betrayal fits. Accident doesn't. Choice does. I am not the jealous wife. I am the injured partner. He is not a monster. He is the person who did harm and is repairing. We're not doing poetry. We're building a glossary so we don't fight about synonyms when we mean the same wound. Check-ins, 5 minutes, 2 chairs. Every night after the kids were down and the dishwasher hummed, we sat in the living room, chairs angled, no touching. Dr. Hale calls it the state of us. I say what's loud in my head. He listens. Then he says one thing he did that day to move us forward: call, email, meeting, reading, apology, hard truth, and one thing he felt that isn't a sales pitch. We set a timer. The timer keeps the river from flooding the house. The first week felt like a boot camp built out of paperwork and breathing exercises. I learned terms I never wanted to know: window of tolerance, trauma response, trigger stack. I learned that when my chest suddenly goes hot and my hands go cold, I'm not crazy, I'm a body alarm. Say it out loud, Dr. Hale instructed. Name your storm. So I did, in sentences that felt childish and holy at the same time. I see the guest room. I smell her perfume. I think about his shirt. My body wants to run. I am safe in my house. Evan learned more boring humility in 10 days than he learned in 10 years of being charming. He scrubbed the bathroom grout at 10 at night like repentance could get under his nails. He showed me receipts without me asking. He put his phone face up and left the room. He brought the laptop to me saying, a notification popped up. I want you to see it first. It was a bill reminder. Nothing is sexier than a man who invites you to proof his bank login like it's a love language. Lila escalated when ignoring her didn't work. An email with the subject line family meeting morphed into you owe me a conversation, then I'm your mother, then you're cruel. She tried my siblings, your sister is shutting me out. She tried my aunt, I'm worried about Myra's marriage. She tried my kid's school with a grandma emergency contact form I intercepted before it got to the classroom. The audacity made my lips go numb. I held the line. It felt like holding a door against wind. I typed one email and copied everyone. Lila, I'm not available to you now or for the foreseeable future. Do not contact me, my husband, or my children. Do not come to our home. If you ignore this, I'll take legal steps to enforce it. I pressed send. I threw up. Boundaries sometimes make you sick before they make you safe. For 2 weeks, she vanished. Then she tried a new entrance, the grocery store. I was in produce, choosing avocados like they were decisions, when her cart came around the end cap. She beamed, relief bright on her face, as if the universe had reunited us for a sitcom hug. Sweetheart, she said, hands out. Finally. People were everywhere. A teenager bagging apples, a dad comparing prices, a woman holding cilantro like a bouquet. Lila stepped closer. I stepped back. Shoppers glanced up, drawn to the soundless electricity between us. Please don't, I said, voice even enough to surprise me. I could feel the smallness of my body in a grocery store that suddenly felt like a courtroom. Don't what? She asked, offended already. Don't act like we're fine, I said. Don't perform a reunion you didn't earn. Mira, she hissed, lowering her voice into the tone she used when we were kids, and she wanted to look like a saint while pinching. We had too much to drink. It was a mistake. I'm your mother. You were my mother, I said. My hands were shaking. I put them on the avocado bin and pretended I was weighing fruit. Right now you're a person I need to be safe from. A woman down the aisle, gray braid, soft eyes, pretended to read a label while listening. The teenage bagger disappeared like smoke. Lila's eyes flashed. You're being cruel. Safety isn't cruelty, I said. Go. People moved. The moment split. She left with a huff like a windless sail. I stood very still until my heart slowed. I bought 4 avocados that were all wrong and took them home and turned them into something edible because that is what you do when you are a mother and your mother is not. I told Dr. Hale. She nodded like she'd been expecting a grocery store. Abusers, she doesn't use the word lightly, test your fence. They look for loose boards. You reinforced yours. We did kid-proofing of another kind. Children sense weather. They asked about Grandma twice, and then watched my face too closely when I said we weren't seeing her for a while. Is Grandma in timeout? My youngest asked, like the world could be that simple. Yes, I said. A long one. We do not lie to our kids. We also do not hand them adult pain and call it honesty. When grown-ups break big rules, I added, other grown-ups make new rules to keep everyone safe. They accepted it with the grace children give anything you say with a steady voice. We told our families a version of the truth that protected our house without turning holidays into open court. Evan told his parents he'd broken my trust with someone I should have been able to trust, and he was doing repair work. His mother cried on the phone in that quiet way mothers do when they are grieving for you and at you. His father said, do the work like a benediction and a sentence. I told my siblings I was taking space from Mom and I needed them not to triangulate. My brother said, whatever you need. My sister asked for reasons, asked again, then texted a series of question marks that felt like a small army trying to climb my fence. I didn't answer for a full day. Then I wrote, I love you. I'm safe. I'm doing this to stay safe. It wasn't enough for her. It had to be enough for me. People don't have to understand your boundary for it to be a boundary. Intimacy rehab was a separate project. Not romance, basic human closeness. Betrayal turns a simple touch into a minefield. Dr. Hale gave us a ladder with rungs we had to climb one by one, proximity without touch. Sit on the same couch for 10 minutes while watching a show, no reaching, no leaning. Notice your body. Name the calm, name the spike, breathe until the spike drops below the calm. Timer on the coffee table, visible. Non-pressured eye contact. 30 seconds looking, 60 seconds looking away. Repeat 3 times. If a picture you don't want arrives, say doorway and stop. Doorway became our word for my brain just opened the worst door. I need a minute. Hands only. 5-second hand hold, count out loud, release. Then 10. Then 20. If at any point I felt a flashback bite into the room, I said yellow. Yellow meant pause, not fail. Repair rituals. 5-minute check-in. 1 repair per day. I did the dishes without asking. I scheduled the plumber. I called your doctor to confirm Tuesday. I re-registered the car. I unsubscribed us from the wine club. The unsexy backbone of a family is the stuff nobody sees when it's going right. Watching Evan lift those bricks became, slowly, a new kind of closeness. Not heat. Trust. We slept in separate rooms. We didn't set a date to change that. We didn't dangle when. Dr. Hale said, you move the line when moving the line makes you feel safer, not when silence makes him feel punished. So we left the line where it was and learned to speak across it. He taped a note on the guest room door that said, thank you for letting me earn this. It made me cry in the laundry room where nobody could witness it but the stray sock eating dust behind the dryer. I found triggers in places I didn't expect. The guest room window latch clicking. Silk. The smell of her brand of hand cream at the pharmacy. A late-night TV glow spilling under a door. The way his keys sounded on the counter. I made lists. I wrote, triggers are maps, not rules, on a sticky note and put it on the fridge. When one hit, I named it. Window latch, I'd say, and Evan would stop whatever he was doing and look at me, not with pity or exasperation, but with attention. Want me to change it? He asked, already reaching for a screwdriver. Yes, I said, and 20 minutes later the latch sounded different. It was a small miracle, a sound I didn't have to survive anymore. We dismantled Christmas together in early January like we were defusing a bomb. The kids helped pull ornaments off the tree and handed them to us like treasures. I wrapped the ones my mother had given me in paper, and then wrapped the paper in more paper, and then put the box in the very back of the closet, behind camping gear we never use. I kept the star because I bought it myself. I stood on a chair and took it down in both hands like it might break or bless me. It did neither. It went in the box with everything else we'll decide about later. Evan got an invitation to a work thing, off-site, 2 nights, dinners in a hotel ballroom with an open bar and men who still think client entertainment means testing your marriage vows. He brought it to me and said, I'm not going unless you want me to go for income reasons. If I go, I'll take Adam. Adam is his sponsor. A man with a ring and a steady voice and a profound dislike of hotel bars. I looked at the paper, then at my husband who was waiting for me to decide something he used to decide himself. You don't go, I said. You'll miss networking. We'll make it up with phone calls and follow-ups. I am not interested in watching you pass a test you don't have to take. He nodded, almost relieved, and typed an email that used the phrase family obligations, like a shield that actually works. He wrote letters. This was Dr. Hale's idea. Not to me, to the future. Dear us in a year, one began. If you're reading this, it's because you forgot that this month existed. Here's what it felt like. Here's what I did every single day. Here's how it felt to wake up alone in the guest room and see my kids eat cereal in the doorway like I was their dad and a ghost at the same time. Don't forget. Don't drink. Don't flirt with the soft door of the easy lie. He sealed them, dated them, put them in a shoebox. Half discipline, half prayer. He also wrote an apology letter to each of our children, sealed and dated for a decade from now, in case we decide telling them the fuller truth is safer when they are taller. He read the letters aloud to Dr. Hale. He did not read them to me. That boundary was mine. Some future tears belong to future me. Present me is busy. My sister pushed again. Why can't I bring the kids to see Mom? She texted. I typed and erased 3 answers that were too much and 1 that was not enough. I settled on, you get to have your relationship with her. I get to decide mine. Please don't use my children to soothe hers. She sent a thumbs up, then didn't talk to me for 3 days. The old me would have chased her. The new me did laundry and let the space be instructive. I ran into Lila's sister, my Aunt Rosa, in the pharmacy aisle. She looked at me like I was the weather and said, your mother is telling everyone you've turned cold. I almost laughed. Tell her winter saved my garden, I said, surprising myself. Rosa tilted her head. I'm proud of you, she said softly. You got that from your grandmother, not your mother. I cried in my car because someone finally handed me a lineage that wasn't poison. On a Tuesday, my youngest brought home a drawing from kindergarten, for stick figures holding hands under a lopsided sun. He'd drawn me next to him, Evan on the other side, his older sister on the end. Where's Grandma? He asked, not accusatory, just curious. I put the picture on the fridge. In another picture, I said. Not this one. He thought about it, nodded, ran off to build something from blocks that turned out to be a very wobbly zoo. The cage for the lions was too small. We talked about how that's dangerous. We made it bigger. We laughed. We are not subtle in our house anymore. One night, 3 weeks in, I woke at 2:11 a.m. to silence that wasn't wrong. It was quiet. I lay there and realized I hadn't replayed the door in 2 nights. When the picture tried to enter, I said doorway out loud to the dark and the picture waited outside like a polite ghost. I rolled over. I slept. The next morning, I told Evan. He didn't cheer. He didn't make it about the future. He said, I'm glad you slept. 4 words. Enough. We still had landmines. The kids asked for matching pajamas for a belated, just us celebration, and the set I found was the brand my mother loves. I stared at the label in Target and felt my throat close. I put them back. We bought dinosaur ones instead. The kids roared around the living room like a herd that had been given permission to be noisy. I joined them. I'm very bad at roaring. They told me I was too quiet. Working on it, I said, and we laughed. A month in, Dr. Hale asked me what I wanted that had nothing to do with safety. I said, silence that isn't scary. She said, okay. That's a project too. We scheduled a no-talking hour on Saturday afternoon during nap time. Evan took the kids to the park. I sat in the kitchen with the radio off and sliced oranges and felt the inside of my head stop vibrating. It lasted 10 minutes and then the buzz came back, but for those 10 minutes I remembered what calm sounds like when it isn't pretending to be the absence of danger. We didn't rush physical closeness. We did the latter and then stayed on the rung that felt stable. A hand on a shoulder while we watched a cartoon. A 30-second hug in the morning, then 10-second debriefs about how it landed. If my body went cold, I said it. If his face crumpled, he said, I'm here. Nothing below the clavicle without a scheduled conversation and consent hand signal. Does that sound clinical? Good. Clinical saved us from the theater of guesswork that got us here. And slowly, like someone turning up a dimmer instead of flipping a switch, my nervous system learned the difference between him touching me in our kitchen where our children eat cereal and that other room I am not in anymore. The difference was not just location, it was contrition. It was repair. It was him asking before reaching every single time. It was me saying no and the world not ending. We debriefed little wins the way you debrief disasters. Today I loaded the guest room sheets into the washer and didn't cry. I told Dr. Hale, and she smiled like a coach with a clipboard. That's capacity, she said. Write it down. I wrote it in the cheap notebook where I keep evidence that I am not just surviving, I am changing. 2 months in, the school invited grand friends to a Thursday craft day. The flyer felt like a dare. We RSVP'd 2 parents attending. The morning of, my son asked if Grandma Lila was coming. I said, not this time. He said, maybe Nana? Evan's mother. Yes, I said. Let's call Nana. We did. She cried quietly and arrived with glue sticks and oranges and the kind of gentle that doesn't make itself the star. Lila texted question marks all afternoon. I put my phone in a drawer and helped glue goggly eyes onto paper frogs that all looked unhinged. It was perfect. And, because people always want to know, did I tell my siblings? Yes, some of it. I told my sister on a day I felt sturdy. She cried. She apologized for pushing. She said she hated that she asked me for reasons when she should have just believed me. She wanted to fix it. She can't. That's the point. We walked in the cold and said the word mother like we were negotiating a ceasefire. She promised not to bring the kids to Lila without checking with me first. I believed her. My brother sent me a text, I'm sorry. I love you. I've got you. I cried on the stairs between the kitchen and the bedrooms, the place where sound echoes and nobody can see you unless they're looking. 3 months in, I picked up a small terracotta pot at the nursery and planted rosemary by the kitchen window. It smells like clarity when you bruise it with your fingers. I rub it when I feel the picture coming back. Evan jokes that our house now smells like a rotisserie chicken. I tell him if he keeps making jokes like that I'll kiss him in June. He smiles like June is a continent we'll row towards slowly and maybe reach when the weather is right. We reached a moment I didn't expect on a Tuesday at 5:40 p.m. rush hour in a kitchen. The kids were protesting peas. The rice cooker beeped. A work email buzzed. The dog threw up in the doorway because that is what dogs do when they sense you think you might handle this one okay. I stood very still and felt the heat rise. Not grief, not rage, just volume. I said, yellow. Evan shut off the stove, scooped the dog situation, handed the kids apples, and pointed me to the back step like a coach sending a player to the bench for water. I sat outside for 6 minutes, breathed January air, watched a neighbor reverse badly out of his driveway, and realized my marriage had become a place where I could say, yellow, when the chaos had nothing to do with betrayal and everything to do with Tuesday. I came back in, kissed the tops of the kids' heads, stirred the rice, and said, thank you. He said, anytime. The timer on the oven dinged like applause. If you need a metric, we moved Evan's pillow back into our room at week 14. Not because a therapist signed a permission slip. Because I woke up one morning and didn't flinch at the idea of his breath in the dark. We did not cross any lines we hadn't discussed. We slept like tired parents who are trying. It felt like placing a heavy book on a high shelf we had built together. The guest room stayed made up. Safety is not a one-way move. I still don't answer Lila's emails. My aunt says she's telling people I've turned the kids against family. I bought a frame and put a photo in it of our 4 stick figures under a sun my son drew. It sits by the rosemary. If this is turning, then we are turning toward the light. I don't know if this is a happy ending. It's not an ending at all. It's a middle where the syntax finally makes sense. Subject, verb, object. I am subject. I choose verbs. The object is safety. I also know this. My mother has always been a hurricane dressed like a helping hand. I used to build sandcastles and hope. Now I build walls and windows and a door that locks from the inside. You can still see the ocean. You don't have to drown in it. Next week, Dr. Hale wants us to write vows, not to each other, not yet, but vows to ourselves we can read on bad days. I already know my first line. I vow to believe myself the first time. Evan's might be, I vow to put repair before comfort. The kids will be popsicle stick promises with glitter that ends up everywhere, and, honestly, that seems right. Healing is messy. It sparkles in the carpet for months. We are taking down the winter lights this weekend. I'm leaving one string up along the kitchen window. My mother would call it tacky. My daughter says it looks like we keep a tiny sunrise at night. That's good enough theology for me. By March, the house had a new rhythm. The dishwasher's hum no longer reminded me of the guest room. It reminded me of clean plates for breakfast. The rosemary by the window had gone a little wild. I trimmed it back and thought, this is what tending looks like. Small, regular cuts so the plant doesn't choke itself. Dr. Hale said, recovery isn't a parade. It's Tuesday. We were getting good at Tuesdays. Then Lila tested the fence again. It started with a certified letter, heavy paper, her handwriting on the outside, a lawyer's name in the corner like perfume. I didn't open it alone. I sat at the dining table with Evan and set my phone to record for my own memory, not a courtroom. Inside, a 3-page monologue dressed as concern. I fear for your marriage. You're punishing a mistake. You can't keep my grandchildren from me. I am your mother. My hands went cold in that old familiar way. The frost climbed my ribs. I put the letter back in its envelope like I was tucking a snake into a jar and said, very softly, we're done asking. We hired an attorney, quiet, calm, not interested in drama. She drafted a formal no-contact letter on my behalf. Not a threat, a boundary with teeth. Do not call, text, email, or approach me, my husband, or our children. Do not come to our home, school, or places we frequent. Future contact will result in a harassment restraining order. All communication, if necessary, goes through counsel. It was sterile and merciful and exactly what safety sometimes looks like. We mailed it certified. We told Dr. Hale. We told the school. We told my siblings, simple and neutral. For now, I'm enforcing no contact with Mom. Please don't try to mediate. If she asks you for updates on us or the kids, say no. My brother replied, proud of you. My sister sent a heart, then called to cry because the child in her hated this, even while the adult understood. I told her I loved her and that the fence wasn't against her. We learned together that you can mourn a boundary while still respecting it. 2 quiet weeks passed. Quiet has a way of teaching your nervous system a new language. And then Lila broke the fence. A Saturday. Sun like gold foil. I was on the porch tying my daughter's shoe when a car door shut too close to our curb. My body knew before my eyes did. I looked up and saw her, lipstick perfect, hair in its Sunday best even on a Saturday, an expression rehearsed for a judge. She stepped onto the sidewalk with her hands out like an actress approaching a standing ovation. Sweetheart, she said loudly enough for the neighbors, I just want to talk. I stood. Stop. She took another half step. Your lawyer's letter hurt me, she said, as if pain were a permission slip. Our next-door neighbor, Mr. Alvarado, froze with his hedge clippers. Across the street, the twins from 2B stopped their bikes. A breeze pulled at the rosemary and sent the smell of clarity into the scene like a stage direction. You need to leave, I said, voice steady enough that it surprised me and the rosemary and probably God. I have rights, she snapped. There it was, the switch from mother to opponent. You have a choice, I said. Leave or wait here while I call the police. It happened fast and slow. She lunged for the porch step. I put my palm out and said no. Evan stepped between us like a wall made of yes. Lila, he said, formal in a way I'd never heard, you received a no-contact notice. You're trespassing. Go. For a split second, something like shame crossed her face. Then the old triumph sparked and died. She looked small. She looked like someone realizing the audience had stopped applauding. You'll regret this, she hissed, but even her hiss sounded tired. I dialed. The dispatcher's voice was calm, almost kind. Stay where you are. Officers are on the way. Lila backed down the steps, turned stiffly, got in her car, and drove off before the squad arrived. We filed the report anyway. Paper is a kind of prayer. It tells the future what happens so it doesn't have to ask your body to repeat it. After, I went into the bathroom and shook until my knees got the message that we were safe. Then I washed my face and went back to the porch and tied the other shoe. That night we added a new sentence to our check-in. What would make you feel safer this week? My answers were small and strangely practical. Motion lights for the side yard. A copy of the report in the kitchen drawer. Tell the kids that not everyone who says grandma gets to be let in. Evan wrote each one down and did them quietly, like tasks for a house we planned to keep for a long time. We met with Dr. Hale and told her what happened. She nodded, not surprised, not cold. Good fences require maintenance, she said. You did that. And next time, she looked at Evan, you keep your body between, even faster. He nodded like he'd been given a drill for a team he didn't plan to disappoint. I texted Aunt Rosa afterward. She came. We enforced the fence. Please don't let her use you to climb over it. Rosa sent back a single line that belonged on a quilt. Some people only understand doors when they lock. I put my phone down and breathed like a person whose lungs work when the air isn't full of ghosts. Spring in our house arrived in tiny domestic ways. Muddy shoes by the door, soccer schedules magnet to the fridge, a permission slip left on the table like a dare. The rosemary bloomed lavender. I didn't know it could. My daughter said the flowers looked like tiny fairy hats. We left them alone. Dr. Hale handed us the next assignment. Tell the truth to the children later, on purpose. Not now. Later. She calls it age staging, a few pebbles of truth now, more stones when they're taller, the whole path when they can walk it without falling in. We practice language. Now, grown-ups sometimes break big rules. When they do, other grown-ups make new rules to keep families safe. Later, tween Grandma Lila broke a rule that hurt Mom and Dad's relationship. We decided she couldn't be in our house anymore. We're okay. It's okay to love people who aren't around. It's okay not to. Later still, teen the fuller shape of it, without voyeurism, without turning them into referees. Dad made a choice with Grandma that was not okay. He has been repairing since. Mom made a boundary with Grandma to keep us safe. We protect each other here. We wrote the phrases on index cards like we were studying for an exam we refused to fail. We tucked them into a drawer and hoped we wouldn't need them soon. People ask about intimacy like they're asking for gossip. What they really want is hope. I can give you that without violating guidelines and without betraying myself. The return was scheduled, consented, and boring in the best way. We blocked a night in the calendar not for sex, but for closeness practice. No wine. No music to trick our bodies into forgetting. A lamp, a timer, and a list we made with Dr. Hale. 5 minutes of breath together, sitting back to back on the bed, eyes closed, inhaling when the other exhales until your bodies remember you're not opponents. 15 minutes of touch with rules, shoulders, forearms, scalp. If either of us said yellow, everything stopped, full stop, kindness first. Words before and after, what came up, what felt good in a safe way, what we feared, what we hoped for next time. We did not cross lines because a clock or a memory told us to. We moved when safety moved. I learned a new signal. 2 taps on his wrist means I'm here. Don't move closer. Stay, please. He learned that staying is sometimes the bravest thing a man can do. When we finally slept in the same bed more nights than not, it wasn't because we decided to act married. It was because my body decided it wouldn't be punished for trusting. Here is the most YouTube-safe, honest line I can offer. Intimacy began to feel like home again when it was built out of permission rather than performance. The best detail I can give you is not a position, it's a posture. 2 people facing each other with nothing to sell, everything to confess, and hands that ask instead of assume. We messed up too. One night, too fast. One morning, I forgot we had a word and froze. We named the misses and repaired them quickly, like you stomp out a spark on a dry lawn. No speech. No spiral. I'm sorry. I got ahead of us. We're safe. Let's reset. Repair as a habit changes a marriage. It also changes a house. Our kids started apologizing without dramatics. I'm sorry I grabbed your toy. Here's a different one until I'm done. We didn't teach them that line. They learned it by osmosis from 2 adults trying every day not to pretend. April brought a school showcase in the cafeteria, all hand-painted posters and a microphone that squealed like a small animal when a teacher got too close. Parents pressed into folding chairs like we were waiting for a verdict and not a parade of kindergartners reciting facts about planets. We chose seats near the exit in case my nervous system needed air. Nana came. We saved her a chair. We exhaled together when our son waved mid-recitation as if he'd just spotted us for the first time, even though we'd been waving the whole time like inflatable tube people outside a car wash. Afterward, in the parking lot, Aunt Rosa approached with a look that made me brace. "She's trying to get sympathetic ears," she said without preamble. "Telling people you've turned hard." She handed me a small envelope. "From me to you." Inside, a photograph I'd never seen, a black and white of my grandmother as a young woman, chin up, eyes stubborn, hands on her hips like she'd just been told no and was deciding what to do with the word. On the back, Rosa had written, "You look like her when you say enough." I put it in my wallet behind my driver's license, like identity. We went home and made spaghetti. We argued about the right amount of garlic. We used too much. There is no such thing as too much garlic. On a walk the next evening, I asked Evan, "Why did you pick the off-ramp you wrote about?" He didn't flinch. "Pride," he said. "And a cheap high. And an old habit of avoiding feelings by choosing chaos." I told myself I'd stop before it mattered. That's not a thing. It matters the second you choose it. He took a breath. "I'm sorry." The apology didn't land like confetti. It landed like a brick in the right place. We went home. We washed dishes. He did the thing with the glasses so they didn't spot. I took a photo of him at the sink and saved it to a hidden album labeled Receipts of Repair, not to post, not to prove to anyone, but to show myself on bad days. "See? He's doing it. You're not crazy. Tuesday is working." By early summer, the rosemary had to be repotted. We bought a bigger clay vessel and soil that promised drainage like a good therapist promises a safe place for floodwater. We turned the plant out gently, loosened the roots, and set it into its new home. I watered until I saw moisture bloom on the surface and the pot went from dull to dark. "That looks good on this counter," Evan said, admiring like he had planted it himself. "It belongs here." "So do we," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in it. We still ran drills. He still went to his morning meetings. I still saw Dr. Hale every other week, even when I felt fine, especially then. We still had a guest room made up like a backup plan we hoped not to need. We still did check-ins with a timer, not because we didn't trust each other, but because guardrails make long drives safer. Lila stayed on her side of the fence. The police report and the lawyer's letter had translated my no into a dialect she understood. Word got out in the family that I was serious. Invitations were extended with footnotes that read, "Lila will not be there" or "Lila will be there. We understand if you decline." We went where it was safe. We didn't apologize for the map. One Sunday, at the farmer's market, I saw a woman with Lila's perfume pass me. My chest went tight and then let go. I turned to tell Evan, but he was already looking at me, eyebrows up in a silent question, his hand hovering near mine without taking it. I nodded. I took his hand. We bought peaches and laughed when the juice ran down our wrists. A stranger handed us a napkin like a blessing. Ordinary felt like a luxury good we could now afford. We wrote the vows Dr. Hale asked for, vows to ourselves, the kind you can say out loud on bad mornings. Mine, I vow to believe myself the first time. I vow to treat peace like rent, paid before anything fun. I vow to protect my children's calm even when my own is shaky. I vow to never again trade my dignity for someone else's comfort. I vow to love the part of me that locked the door. His, I vow to tell on myself before you have to ask. I vow to put repair before relief. I vow to respect, yellow like a fire alarm. I vow to be the kind of father our kids can copy without editing. I vow to remember the cost of my choice every day and pay it gladly. We didn't frame them. We folded them and tucked them into the rosemary pot, paper under soil, promises rooted in dirt. It felt corny. It also felt true. People sometimes message me for the ending. They want "we made it" or "we didn't." They want a bow. Here's what I have. We made a home where truth goes first. We made a marriage where repair is a verb, not a speech. We made a family where safety is obvious, so obvious the kids don't have to ask for it. We made a fence that stays up without us standing against it every minute. And about the night behind that door, I decided not to carry the frame anymore. I still own the photo. It lives in a folder called Not Today in the back of my mind. When it tries to escape, I say doorway and it sits. That is not magic. That is practice. I won't give you the intimate details you think you want. I'll give you the ones you actually need. The first time I laughed so hard I snorted and didn't immediately feel guilty afterward. The first morning I woke up and forgot what day in the recovery timeline we were on. The first time Evan reached for my hand and I didn't do math about it. The first time the kids asked for a grandma and I said, Nana's on her way, and it didn't sting like surrender, it felt like a choice. If one day my children want to know everything, we will tell them enough to make them wise, not weary. If one day my mother learns how to be safe, there will be a process, not a reunion montage. Forgiveness is not access. Blood is not a key. A year from now, someone will ask me for the lesson. I'll say this: love is what you do when the camera isn't rolling, pancakes with shaking hands, therapy on a Tuesday, motion lights in a side yard. Boundaries are love letters to your future self. Closure isn't a conversation where they finally get it. Closure is the morning you stop explaining your fence. And if you need one sentence to stitch to your own story, take this one: I will not protect the comfort of people who hurt me at the expense of my own safety. We still keep the tiny sunrise of string lights along the kitchen window. My daughter says they help the house remember how to be warm at night. She's right. Sometimes healing looks exactly like that, a soft glow you plug in on purpose so the dark is less bossy. When I turn them off before bed, I pass the rosemary, brush it with my fingers, and breathe in the scent of clarity. Then I slide under the covers next to the man who learned how to be safe on purpose. I flip my pillow to the cool side. The case faces whichever way I want. The door stays locked from the inside. This is not the life I planned. It is the life I chose.